I was honestly shocked by what he said. But I think nothing shocked me as much as the way that he turned around and saying, this is a team that has won nothing, barring Diego Godin. And what do you want me to do? Rely on a guy who came from Cagliari and Barella or from Sassuolo in Sensi? Like, what am I going to do? These are the guys I have in midfield. Like, how am I supposed to challenge? Well, how about you take a look at yourself and note that no one has Lionel Messi.
You're talking to me at the moment. I'll take a look at myself.
But it drove me insane for a man who took Giaccherini from Cesena when he was at Juventus and turned him into something actually very special. And he took him to the national team, and he was delightful against the likes of Germany and so on. Why would you do this to your players who have done so much for you? And I don't know what it is that you're complaining about, because you got everything that you asked for in the sense that you went for Lukaku, you got Alexis Sanchez, you wanted Barella specifically, you have a defense that most people would die for. I don't know what it is that you want from a team that has just come out of financial fair play, that's already spent a lot of money. Not every side can afford to have Lionel Messi on a bench. I mean, even the world's greatest teams from Liverpool haven't spent anything over the summer, and they had 3 of their front players engaged in summer tournaments. No one's complaining about this. They're still managing to keep a tight defense and still scoring the games in top of the league. And Pochettino reached Champions League final on the fact that he didn't spend anything in the transfer market. And it's, what about looking inwards? What about looking at the fact that it was so easy for Paco Alcacer from a free, what do you call a throw-in, to just manage to get their second goal? That was an embarrassment. And that has nothing to do with the fact that your team are exhausted. You know, we can't all just rotate and have wonderful players coming off the bench to make the difference. And it's about, you've exhausted these players. You have Antonio Pintus. I still don't think it's a question of exhaustion. I do think that this is where it's simplistic. And you made this wonderful point, Nicky, that you said, you can see that the way that they play their football because it's so in tune. Like, they've learnt this. They understand the schemes. My issue with Conte is he's too simplistic. He teaches you like FIFA. He tells you exactly what you're supposed to do. But when the game changes and the quality changes and the tempo's upped, and you can't play exactly the way that you've been taught, his players don't know how to adapt.
Well, it's interesting, actually, that in a broader point, I think speaks a huge volume to Antonio Conte, which he's a control freak. You know, like, he wants to be in control of everything.
The best coaches are.
Yeah, well,
most of the best coaches are.
I think there's still...
I disagree with that,
I know you do, but most of the best coaches know exactly what they want to do, and they demand that off the players. And when the players start to go off track and start to do their own things, that's when the coaches have a problem. Some coaches like people to play with freedom, but they're not top coaches, they're good man managers. The best coaches, and that's the key word, the best coaches are the coaches that dictate what goes on the field and don't allow the players to have too much freedom.
We're going to go down a wormhole here if we're not careful, or a rabbit hole even, but I find that fascinating because I was at the Italian managers training school in Coverciano a year or 2 ago, and I spoke to Renzo Oliveri, who's in charge there now, and he was talking about how you coach a coach in effect, and actually he was talking about how the evolution of the game means that you can't be as rigid as you used to be. Like, it's much more about teaching a player that in a certain situation you have a set of options, and those options, at the simplest level, it's, you can keep the ball.
But if the next player doesn't know all the options, then that's when it all breaks down. And then you can't see what's going wrong, particularly defensively. And what's wrong with Inter in the very big games, as it was against Juventus, as it was in the second half against Barcelona, as it was against Dortmund, is that when you play with a back three and you play with 2 wing-backs, when you're in control of the game, your wing-backs play high up the field. But even when you lose control of the game, you still want your wing-backs to push on, to stop the opposition having easy possession. But you need your wide centre-halves to be comfortable going into wide areas. And that's his big problem at the moment. Godin isn't a right-sided player in a back three. He should be in the middle. Skriniar on the other side is a very good defender, but he's a centre-half. He doesn't really want to go out into wide areas. So when they get in behind the wing-backs, there's a major problem. So the wing-backs end up dropping deep, and as they switch the play, Dortmund, the 2 full-backs can have the freedom of the park, and that's what happens.
It's interesting when we're discussing great coaching, because you see, the way that I look at it is you have a good man manager, like you said, a good coach in the sense of tactical schemes, and then you have what is the sort of the holy grail, which is a mixture of both. And I think that what you have, for example, Gattuso was a great man manager. He made the most of what he could, but there was no decipherable style of play. And then you look at, for example, Conte, and I think he's the other way around. I think that he's obviously very good in getting his players, to have that right mentality. But what I thought I really appreciated, for example, when Allegri came along, and I think what a lot of people appreciated after Jose Mourinho and Carlo Ancelotti, is the fact that he makes better players because he allows you and teaches you what decisions to make and how to adapt to a situation when you don't know how to. What makes Pep so amazing is that he has a style of play, a very unique identity, but I also think the players also know how to adapt when they are closed down. Perhaps not as well, but with Conte, it seems like this is my plan. We're going to do exactly as I told you. Oh no, they've turned it on. What do we do? And that's always the way that I've seen it, because once again, as soon as a team plays by possessing the ball and at a higher tempo than he's used to, because Serie A is a slower league. And so as soon as Ousmane Dembélé comes, he knows how to obviously keep hold of the ball. He also is very fast with it. None of the opponents knew what to do. None of Inter's players knew how to stop him or how to stop Arturo Vidal. It's always the same, which is let's bully the opponent at every opportunity. But when it comes to actually, where you have to not only bully the opponent, but know how to take a breather and sometimes just keep the ball. The amount that they turned possession in midfield was astonishingly poor. And for me, this is something that you have to teach the players how to cope when there is going to be pressure. Because you're not facing Sassuolo and Lecce every day. You are facing very big teams.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.